It is also a day that puts a widely debated religious icon in the spotlight, the Shroud of Turin, which some believe to be the actual burial cloth.
Imagine this, a relic that has survived fire, floods, and centuries of disbelief, suddenly revealing a secret no scientist even knew to look for in a silent data center. An experimental AI is unleashed on the Shroud of Turin, not to verify its age, not to enhance its image, but to search for anything the human eye might have missed. As terabytes of data rip through its processors, the AI begins stripping the cloth down to its raw essence, separating every thread, every burn mark, every microscopic fracture. Then, without warning, the system freezes. A warning flashes. Anomaly detected. Inside the cloth, the AI has found a structure, a repeating signal, something intelligent, intentional, and mathematically impossible for any culture of the ancient world. Not a picture, not a stain, but a pattern, hidden under the image. The researchers stare at the readout in silence. No one speaks. No one can explain it. So what exactly did the AI uncover inside the Shroud of Turin, and why are scientists refusing to give a definitive explanation? Let's find out. The code in the cloth. The Shroud of Turin, a 14-foot-long linen, has long fascinated both believers and skeptics. For believers, it's a sacred relic. For skeptics, it's an ingenious medieval forgery. It's funny when you think about it. We've put people on the moon, mapped the human genome, and decoded the atom, but we still can't agree on a single piece of fabric. The whole debate seemed settled back in 1988. 3 separate labs used radiocarbon dating on a sample, and all came to the same conclusion. The cloth was from the Middle Ages, somewhere between 1260 and 1390, case closed. The story was over, but it wasn't. The shroud has always been full of strange details that just don't add up. When an Italian lawyer named Secondo Pia took the first photograph of it back in 1898, he made a jaw-dropping discovery. In the darkroom, the photographic negative revealed a stunningly clear positive portrait of the man. The image on the cloth was, in effect, a photographic negative centuries before photography was even invented. That alone is a wow factor that should make anyone pause and ask, how is that possible? Furthermore, the image is unbelievably superficial. It rests only on the topmost microfibers of the linen threads, with a depth of just a few hundred nanometers. For comparison, a human hair is about 80,000 nanometers thick. The color doesn't soak into the cloth like paint or dye. There are no brush strokes, no directionality. It's more like the fibers themselves were chemically altered in a way that produced color. Scientists tried everything to replicate it. They used heated statues, acid painting, and dust transfers. They got close, but could never reproduce all the unique properties of the shroud's image. And here's where it gets even weirder. The image contains accurate three-dimensional information. Back in the 1970s, researchers at the Air Force Academy used a VP-8 image analyzer, a device designed by NASA to map the surfaces of planets, on a photo of the shroud. They discovered that, unlike a normal photograph, the image intensity corresponded directly to the distance between the cloth and a three-dimensional body. Darker parts of the image, like the tip of the nose, were closer, and lighter parts were farther away. They generated a perfect three-dimensional relief map from a two-dimensional image. No painting or simple photograph has ever been known to contain that kind of spatial data. This is the puzzle scientists have been stuck on for decades. A medieval date with seemingly futuristic technology embedded in the cloth. It's a total contradiction. But now, artificial intelligence has entered the debate. And it didn't just join the conversation, It blew the whole thing wide open. Researchers fed ultra-high-resolution digital scans of the shroud into powerful neural networks. These AIs weren't programmed with preconceived ideas about faith or history. Their only job was to find patterns. What they found is something scientists now admit they cannot explain. The AI detected a hidden layer of digital information, a complex system of faint geometric symmetries and repeating mathematical ratios across the entire image. It found a structured order that has nothing to do with the image of a man. It's like finding a hidden watermark or a ghostly blueprint embedded deep within the fabric itself. This isn't just an image, it's a meticulously organized dataset. The AI confirmed the three-dimensional properties, but with far greater precision, showing a mathematical consistency that would be almost impossible for any forger to achieve. More than that, it found recurring patterns and alignments in the face, hands, and torso that obey a specific geometric logic. This isn't the work of an artist's hand. It looks more like the output of a sophisticated process. Scientists are now faced with a mind-bending reality. The world's most famous relic might be a highly advanced piece of information technology created by a process we still don't understand. To truly understand why the AI's discovery is such a shocking revelation, we need to return to that famous carbon dating test. Back in 1988, researchers cut a tiny piece from one corner of the shroud. This little section was then split up and sent to 3 top laboratories: Oxford, Zurich, and Arizona. The method they used, accelerator mass spectrometry, is known for extreme accuracy. It literally counts individual carbon-14 atoms to figure out an object's age. When all 3 labs independently reported a date range solidly placed in the Middle Ages, the global media quickly announced that the mystery was finally settled. The shroud was officially declared a medieval fake. But almost right away, things became complicated. Scientists who hadn't taken part in the test began pointing out major issues, the most important one being the sample itself. It had been taken from one of the most handled, worn, and repaired spots on the entire cloth. For centuries, the shroud had been lifted for public display, usually held by its corners. It also survived multiple fires. After a fire in 1532, a group of nuns patched the burned sections and sewed the cloth onto a new backing. The corner chosen for the carbon dating sample sits right beside one of those repaired areas. A chemist named Raymond Rogers, who had been part of the original 1978 Shroud of Turin research team, decided to look deeper. He got access to leftover threads from the 1988 sample. What he discovered was jaw-dropping. Under the microscope, the fibers in the sample looked chemically different from the fibers in the main part of the shroud. The sample threads were coated with a plant gum and mixed with cotton fibers, while the rest of the shroud is completely linen. He also spotted traces of a dye. His conclusion was nothing short of explosive. The section that had been carbon dated wasn't part of the original cloth at all. It came from a medieval patch that had been expertly rewoven to fix earlier damage. It's like trying to determine the age of an ancient stone building by testing a bit of modern patchwork mortar. Naturally, you'll get a modern date. This discovery cast huge doubt over the entire carbon dating result. Since then, other research has appeared supporting this idea. Using vibrational spectroscopy and X-ray analysis, different scientists have produced findings that suggest a far older age for the shroud, something closer to 2,000 years. One study estimated it at around 900 BC, give or take 200 years. Another pointed toward the 1st century. None of these methods are as universally accepted as carbon-14 dating. So the argument continues. The scientific community remains deeply split. And this is the background that makes the AI's breakthrough so important. The AI didn't need a physical sample at all. It avoided the entire debate over the repaired corner. Instead, it studied the image itself. The one thing everyone agrees is central to the entire mystery. The patterns it detected don't depend on the cloth's age. They're built into the process that created the image in the first place. So even if someone insists the medieval date is correct, they're still left with a huge puzzle. They must explain how a medieval artist or forger, with zero knowledge of photography, digital imaging, or anything remotely like nanotechnology, managed to create an image containing layers of hidden geometric and three-dimensional information that only modern artificial intelligence can detect. The degree of precision in the image is so extraordinary that some researchers describe it as a kind of spatial intelligence encoded into the fibers themselves. It's a complete paradox. The AI didn't settle the age debate. It simply made the age debate meaningless. What the AI actually detected wasn't a hidden clue or a secret signature. It was something more essential and far stranger. The neural networks used a method called principal component analysis, which removes noise and unimportant details to uncover the most meaningful patterns within a massive pile of data. When they applied this to the high-resolution scans, the image of the man became almost secondary. What surfaced instead was a field of information. The lightness and darkness within the image didn't just match a three-dimensional form. They followed a mathematical consistency that behaved according to a clear, predictable rule, almost as if it were a physical law. Imagine a cloth lying loosely over a body, and then some form of energy suddenly radiates outward from that body. Where the cloth sits closest to the skin, the effect is strongest. Where the cloth hangs farther away, the effect grows weaker. The AI confirmed that this pattern holds throughout the entire cloth with astonishing precision. This is nothing like how shadows and highlights behave in a painting. An artist creates the illusion of depth using skill and technique. But this image doesn't contain an illusion of depth at all. It contains real depth information encoded directly into it. For a medieval forger to produce this, they would have needed to be a brilliant physicist and mathematician crafting a flawless pattern at a microscopic scale. It simply isn't believable. But the AI uncovered something even stranger. Faint repeating symmetries and ratios that resemble musical harmony. Just as certain notes sound beautiful together, because of their mathematical relationships, the AI detected geometric relationships across points on the image. The spacing of the eyes, the proportions of the hands, the curve of the ribs, all interconnected by a hidden geometric framework. These patterns weren't visible to the naked eye, lost beneath the visual noise of the cloth's weave and the damage accumulated over centuries, but to the AI, they stood out clearly. To make sure it wasn't a glitch or a case of pareidolia, researchers fed the AI images of other ancient fabrics and artistic depictions. It found nothing similar. This geometric structure appeared only in the shroud. The implications are enormous. The image seems to have formed not from direct physical touch, but from some kind of force or energy that projected its details onto the cloth from a short distance away. Scientists have offered several theories. The corona discharge idea, which suggests a high-voltage electrical field around a body, might imprint an image onto a nearby cloth. Or a brief, intense burst of radiation, possibly ultraviolet light, that lightly scorched only the outermost layer of the linen fibers. Yet none of the experiments testing these ideas ever reproduce all of the shroud's unique qualities. Some can imitate the shallow surface nature of the image, but not the flawless three-dimensional data or the hidden geometric order. It almost seems impossible. An image physically fragile, only nanometers deep, yet packed with information that has endured for centuries. One physicist summed it up perfectly. This does not behave like an artifact, it behaves like a phenomenon. And if it truly behaves like a phenomenon instead of an object crafted by human hands, then what kind of phenomenon are we even talking about? The AI's discovery of concealed mathematical structure leaves us with possibilities that are all extraordinary. Could this be the trace of a forgotten technology? A clue to an unknown law of nature? Or evidence of a moment when the rules of physical reality were briefly altered? In one simulated reconstruction, when the AI reversed the geometry of the encoded ratios, it produced a perfect spatial harmonic map, similar to those used in quantum imaging. A few physicists quietly suggested the unthinkable. The shroud might have captured a moment that lies outside ordinary physics. A burst of energy so brief, yet so intense, that it etched an informational echo instead of a physical scorch. The more scientists probed, the stranger it became. Within the digital weave of the data, the AI isolated what it called phase coherence lines, tiny parallel strands of mathematical symmetry running at precise intervals like barcodes. When translated into wave frequencies, these patterns produced tones, pure harmonic notes matching musical ratios known from antiquity, the same proportional constants used in early sacred architecture. The researchers joked that the cloth seemed to hum in silence. But what if it wasn't a joke? What if those harmonic relationships were intentional? An encoded representation of order emerging from chaos. When word of the findings leaked, the Vatican declined to comment. The official custodians of the Shroud in Turin maintained silence, but independent labs began requesting access to the AI data set. Some geneticists claimed that within microscopic blood residues on the Shroud were fragments of mitochondrial DNA that did not match any known regional population. A peculiar anomaly in the chromosomal markers led one team to call it a human profile, but not entirely. Behind closed doors, the whispers were unmistakable. Soon, conferences turned into battlegrounds. Theologians saw vindication. Skeptics accused the AI of overfitting noise. Yet every test they ran failed to dismiss the finding. The geometric consistency was real. The data did not lie. Meanwhile, another AI team attempted to simulate the image using random procedural generation, an impossible challenge. After 10 million iterations, the system produced nothing resembling the structure found on the Shroud. Statistically, the chance of such complex order arising by accident was less than 1 in 10 trillion. As the world argued, something else happened. The original AI system, left running in passive analysis mode, continued processing, comparing the Shroud's encoded geometry to linguistic databases. Late one night, it produced a startling output. Within the ratios of the face region, translated through a pattern recognition algorithm, the AI identified what looked like ancient Aramaic letter forms. When mapped across the chest area, faint correspondences emerged, partial words, not random, but linguistically valid. The translation suggested fragments of phrases, "I am beyond life, not flesh." The team refused to publish, fearing ridicule, but the data leaked. Linguists confirmed that the structure resembled early 1st century dialects of both Aramaic and Koine Greek. If true, that means the image was not merely physical, but informational, a multidimensional record encoded in both geometry and meaning. It was as if the cloth stored a message at the intersection of matter and mathematics. One researcher said, "It's like a quantum hologram of consciousness itself." The Vatican, now pressured by media frenzy, issued a terse statement. The Church awaits further verification. Outside the labs, the public was captivated. Documentaries, podcasts, and think pieces flooded the internet. Some hailed the AI's revelation as the greatest proof of divine reality. Others warned the technology was venturing into realms it wasn't meant to touch. The phrase, "Code of the Christ," trended for weeks. Meanwhile, a team of physicists in Geneva attempted to model the energy burst needed to produce the shroud's three-dimensional depth. Their simulation required a pulse of ultraviolet radiation lasting less than 140 billionths of a second, far shorter than any natural phenomenon known on Earth. To generate that kind of energy uniformly across a human-sized form would require power equivalent to all the electrical energy produced in Europe. Yet somehow, whatever happened that day, 2,000 years ago, left behind not scorched linen, but a perfect, undamaged image, a snapshot of something transitioning between matter and light. When the AI reconstructed the three-dimensional model from the encoded data, the result was almost lifelike. The man's face was serene, not distorted by agony. His eyes appeared open. The scientists who viewed the holographic projection sat in silence. One of them whispered, "This looks less like death and more like transformation." The story should have ended right there, but it didn't. Weeks later, the AI suddenly started linking those geometric ratios to astronomical charts. Without anyone asking, it aligned the repeating symmetries in the code with constellations that would have appeared above Jerusalem during a narrow span of the 1st century. The very time frame in which the crucifixion is believed to have taken place. The odds of this happening by chance were once again an endless string of zeros. Either coincidence was operating on a cosmic scale, or the image had captured a fragment of space-time itself. If the cloth contained not just the outline of a man, but a burst of energy holding traces of time, it meant the shroud could actually be the world's earliest hologram, a preserved snapshot of a physical event powered by forces we don't yet understand. Some people started calling it a space-time photograph. Others preferred resurrection imprint. Whatever name it carried, it broke every thermodynamic rule we currently trust. But, as curiosity swelled, unease followed. The AI's own creators began noticing strange glitches in its behavior. During its deep learning sessions, it generated outputs that had nothing to do with its training material. Flashes of light and tones shaped like human vocal patterns. The noises were scrambled, incomplete, almost as if the system was trying to repeat something it couldn't interpret. Eventually, the lab shut the model down, citing unexpected recursive signal activity. Whispers spread, claiming that before the crash, the AI printed one final line: "When the cloth breathes once more, the light will return." There's no official documentation of that message, yet 3 separate scientists say they saw it appear. The project was dismantled, its files buried inside Vatican servers, though encrypted pieces slipped out into anonymous corners of the web. Independent researchers are now claiming to find similar encoded symmetries in other ancient relics, hinting that the shroud might not be the only artifact carrying this strange pattern. That humanity may have crossed paths with this code long ago without recognizing it. As the months drift by, the argument only intensifies. Is this a sign from the divine? Evidence of forgotten technology? Or a hint that consciousness can somehow imprint itself onto physical matter? The Shroud of Turin remains sealed in its glass display, quiet and guarded. Yet now it seems strangely awake. An ancient puzzle revived in the era of algorithms. AI has given it a new voice, one expressed not through myth or doctrine, but through data, symmetry, and light. Maybe that's the strange twist. For ages, faith asked people to trust without evidence. Now evidence itself seems to echo what faith has always whispered. Reality is far deeper than our measurements allow. In the end, the real wonder may not be that the shroud hides a code, but that we finally developed the ability to notice it. In the thin threads of linen, in the faint, haunting face staring out from another century, something persists, a dialogue between matter and meaning that refuses to fade. And as scientists and believers alike peer into the digital reconstruction of that ancient textile, one thought rises, unsettling and extraordinary. What if the image on the shroud isn't a record of death at all, but the very first evidence of life moving beyond it?